Hello, friend, and a happy new year to you. We got a lot to talk about. We got a new year, a new you, a new me, and also new TV. Today on the podcast, we're going to enjoy ourselves, and we're going to talk about the biggest TV shows to look forward to in 2024. Big hint, Jodie Foster on your television. I'm Elamin Abdelmahmoud, and this is Commotion. Hello. I'm so happy to see you. Happy New Year. Listen, it's the first day of a brand new year. Now, I don't know what you were up to last night. Maybe you were up late celebrating, or maybe you're just kind of generally wiped out after a pretty hectic holiday. But one thing that I do know is that there's nowhere better to be on New Year's Day than on your couch with the TV on, just enjoying some good television programming. This morning, we're ringing this new year with a conversation about all the good stuff that is coming to our screens this year, how 2024 is shaping up, and also when it comes to what, but also how we'll be watching television. Kathryn VanArendonk is here. Chris Murphy is here. Mel Woods is here. Mel, Chris, Kathryn. Happy New Year, y'all.
Happy New Year.
Oh my gosh. I love this vibe. I love this energy. Listen, Mel, I'm going to start with you. I know we're talking about this new year so much, but before we even look forward, maybe can we just take stock of the year that was in television? You know, just give me one sentence that would describe 2023 for you in terms of how TV was.
You know, I think a phrase, it's not the most exciting phrase in the world, but I'm going to say treading water. It was a very kind of steady, you know, the strike happened, but the strike didn't necessarily impact a lot of the TV that we saw last year. It was kind of consistent. We didn't have those massive tentpole releases necessarily that we've had in past years. Yeah. We saw some things come to an end that had been really defining things for a long time. You know, Succession ended, Riverdale ended, you know, we kind of saw a lot of endings.
Mel, I know you didn't just put Riverdale and Succession in the same sentence. I know you did.
I mean, the people, both the shows of the people, two very different kinds of people.
The people's Succession. That's what people refer to as Riverdale quite commonly. Kathryn, you got one sentence that could summarize what TV was like in 2023?
TV in 2023 was concerned about its future. I think that's really what it is, right? It was like, Mel is exactly right. It felt like things were ending, and it felt like we weren't sure what those new things were going to be yet.
Yeah. These are quite grim descriptors. Chris, we heard treading water, and then we heard an even grimmer description, I would say, from Kathryn. Chris, what do you got?
I wish I could turn it around for everyone, but I do think we're in the early to mid stages of decline of peak TV. I think that's what 2023 brought us, especially with the end of Succession. I think we're forgetting we had some really high highs there, but not the lows kept getting lower, and it feels like we're on a slippery slope that's headed down. I mean,
there was Scandival.
That's true. That's
reality
true.
TV.
The Vanderpump Rules. Yes. Mel, back to you and your description. You said treading water, and a lot of that had to do with this uncertainty of how the strikes would end up playing out. When we now think of 2024, how do you think that's going to affect what we see on the screens in this coming year?
We're going to see some holes in the schedule. We're going to see those gaps. We're going to see those delayed productions of things like, you know, The Last of Us Season 2. That is like a very hotly anticipated thing. That's been bumped back. You know, Yellow Jackets Season 3. These are the shows that I'm looking forward to more of. And I know that I'm going to have to wait a lot longer for them because of the strikes. And so as a result, I think that, you know, our streamers, our networks are going to plug up the holes with some garbage, which I love garbage. There is nothing wrong with plugging the holes with garbage. And sometimes you can get some surprise hits out of all of that. But, you know, we saw a lot of weird reality shows appear in the wake of 2008. And I think we're going to get some more. And, you know, streamers are already moving towards that. Netflix, I love the Netflix reality show machine that has given us Love is Blind and Real Squid Game and all that other stuff.
I love the description of just plugging the holes with some garbage, because like one of the things that we saw is, not to be too rude, Kathryn, to ye old Gilded Age, but look, that's not a show that one would have thought would occupy the prestigious 9 p.m. slot at HBO. Clearly, the Gilded Age becomes a winner of the strike, right? Because like everything gets pushed further down. I mentioned earlier, you know, Jodie Foster coming to your television, True Detective, that's supposed to arrive in January. That would have filled that spot that the Gilded Age found itself in. And so we kind of end up in this position where you're like, this is, no one would describe this as prestige television, but put it in the prestigious slot, it doesn't matter. When you look back at the strikes, what are some of the tangible upsides of the strike? Who are the winners of the strike when it comes to the TV that we're going to get this year?
Well, I do think it is incredibly important to remember that the winners of the strike are the people who make television, that people in writers' rooms have more protections, they have better pay, they have more ability to visit the sets for the shows that they are making, and that writers have been arguing all year long that these are not, that this directly relates to the quality of the thing that you are watching.
Right.
I think because there will be less TV produced overall, it is still going to be a very challenging time to be making television because there are going to be fewer jobs. But the hope is that those jobs that do exist are going to be more sustainable for the people who work in them and who are going to be able to allow people to actually have careers in this industry rather than this endless gig churn. I think the same is true on the actor side, although it is notable and unclear, I think, about the way AI plays into acting work and the way that those protections were spelled out, because it was not as resounding a sense of victory on that side as it was for the writers' protections. And there's a lot of this kind of thing that we're going to have to watch, over the next couple of years, and the contracts will be up again, which is an important part of how these negotiations work. But it's hard to know what that's going to look like in a couple more years. And
Chris, when you think about the strikes, is there something that's like not so much an upside of the strikes and how it's going to affect what we see on television this coming year?
I do think, and Mel sort of touched on this, and I'm a big reality TV person. Let me just say that.
You're like, I'm not anti-reality TV.
I am not anti-reality TV. Yeah. And yet I do think studios and these networks realize that we'll watch whatever they put out. And that will maybe lead to sort of like lower quality. As Mel said, these shows, you don't have to spend as much money on a game show or a reality TV show if you can get, a famous person to host it and then, a couple people from the studio audience to come in and spin a wheel. And if that's on at 8 p.m., then that's what we're going to watch. So I do worry about the overall quality from both a production standpoint and a writing standpoint in reality TV, but also in television writ large. Things are beginning already, as Kathryn said, things are looking very AI, very CGI. We're seeing the vistas, the landscapes, the buildings. It's all becoming a little uncanny valley and very video gamey. So I worry about quality from that.
Guys, can I just say I love us because this is New Year's Day and we're here kind of giving this vibe that's like everything is a little bit worse. Happy New Year, everybody. That's okay because that's just the reality. That's just the reality of the industry that we're talking about. My name is Elamin Abdelmahmoud and this is our first Commotion episode of the new year. We are welcoming this new year with Kathryn VanArendonk, Chris Murphy, and Mel Woods talking about TV that is coming our way in 2024. Kathryn, I want to talk about a tweet that I saw. It's not your tweet because I know HBO sees all your tweets, but this is not one of those stories. Okay, this is Adam Sternberg of the New York Times made this big splash recently. He wrote about how he'd been skeptical of the idea that TV execs were specifically asking for a quote second screen viewing, but then he heard a story firsthand from a TV writer who was asked to make laundry folding television. Does that track for you when you look at like the TV that's around right now?
Yes, of course. There is a lot of laundry folding television. The thing that I really love about that, though, is that TV has always been laundry folding television. Like from the beginning of what television was in our lives, its entire job was to be on while housewives did chores and then sold soap to them, right? And then later, like my mother grew up calling it the idiot box. And what she meant was, yes, the dumbing down of, the public life. But what she also meant was it is a thing you put on in the back. Like Howdy Doody was not Gunsmoke. These were not, bastions of quality. And so the idea that now we would be outraged that people are making laundry folding stuff is like, yeah, have you ever folded laundry in a laundromat? CSI has been on for decades. That's what it's for. And it's on the TV at the laundromat. Like, this is very comforting to me.
But if I could just push back on this a little bit, like, the first time that I saw someone describing ambient TV, this is kind of like around, I think it was Kyle Chaykin, the New Yorker, maybe 2020. And he was talking about Emily in Paris. Paris, which is like a show that if you like look down for 2 minutes to 8 minutes to 12 minutes, you're not going to miss anything. Like not a lot is going to unfold on the screen. You might miss like a sumptuous shot or something, but that becomes laundry folding TV. So like it's meant to like accompany, you know, it's meant to accompany the chores that you're doing, but it's not the main focus. It's not art. It's not. I would never miss a second of Succession, for example, to fold any laundry. And I've seen that show several times from the beginning to the end. But when you see this rise of laundry folding television, or the idea that networks are specifically asking for this, where do you see the evidence of this popping up? And also, like, is this good for the industry, do you think?
I see the evidence popping up in Netflix. Netflix is fighting for people's eyeballs, but what they don't actually want is your whole attention. They don't care. All they want is for you to keep running it constantly. And so if you can keep running it constantly while you are doing other things, that's actually a better scenario for them. And so there was this report that came out very recently, an unusual new amount of data from Netflix that had the total streaming numbers for 6 months out of 2023. And The Night Agent was at the top of that list.
A show that I've heard zero people talk about.
Total streaming. Well, let me tell you, it begins with the premise, what if a phone, but at nighttime? And
I'm always thinking that.
And it is prime laundry folding TV. But again, the thing I want to point out is like TV as art. I love, like, my career is based on TV as art and my deep fascination and fondness for it. But it is also a relatively new phenomenon in the history of this medium, and there is room for both.
Mel, where are you at on this? Are you watching a lot of laundry folding television? Or are you like, no, I actually demand that the TV that I consume only be art?
Well, it's such an interesting thing. You know, we're fresh off the holidays where I spent a lot of time visiting family and turning on the Food Network and just letting it roll for 14 hours in a day, or HGTV, Discovery Channel. And, you know, I think for my generation where we're cord cutters, we don't have cable, you know, I think the streamers recognize that they want to provide that. They want to provide that 14-hour-a-day churn that you can just run in the background. And again, Netflix is doing that well, and I think is going to keep on doing that because it's super cheap to make cooking shows and home decor shows and reality shows and those kind of procedurals and churn. But yeah, I agree that it's not a new phenomenon. I mean, Friends is laundry folding TV. Yeah. Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I love Buffy, but you can put a Buffy episode on and pop in and out at any point. And I love that. I think it's a good thing. And I'm curious to see how it continues to be a priority to appeal to those cord cutters who only are subscribed to streaming services, and the streaming services are going to compete with each other of who's going to be turned on for 14 hours a day and just run. And again, I think Netflix is doing it best right now, but I've got Discovery Plus. It has all my Food Network shows. I let it just run all day, but I want to capture the algorithmic magic of cable TV Food Network somewhere. And I think the streamer that does that is going to be what wins me over.
Chris, I got to say, you know, I chafe at this idea of The Night Agent being the number one show. But you know what I watched is the Netflix show starring Noah Centineo, which is like almost exactly the same premise, you know, except just like make it CIA and sometimes he has to go places. And I don't think I looked up from my phone even once during having that show. I was like, I just need something in the background. Instead of putting on a playlist, I'm going to put on the show. And it did its job. I had a great time. I watched it all the way to the end, but I say watched it, not knowing how much my eyes made actual connection with the screen. But does this connect to you with the idea that the era of prestige TV, the era of peak TV has come and gone?
Well, yeah, and I think actually you hit the nail on the head because you just said Noah Centineo. You just named a star, right? Even if we don't think that he's like that great of an actor, you've named a person. Can we name a star from The Night Agent? Can you name a star from Ginny and
Hong
Georgia?
Chow was in The Night Agent. Okay. How dare you?
Yeah,
I believe you.
She's a movie actress, and that's completely different. You have minting. She's not a star because of The Night Agent. She's a star because of The Whale and other.
Yeah.
Right? So I think the problem with ambient TV, and as Mel said, we've had this. Friends is ambient. Buffy, you could say too. They minted real stars. Actual stars that mattered in culture, whereas the proliferation of this sort of like, ambient, not really paying attention TV that we can look at our phones, we're not getting the same amount, or we could argue caliber of, movie star, TV star, cultural figure that we used to get from television, from the medium. And that makes the whole entertainment industry suffer because we're not getting TV stars. We're not getting movie stars. We're not getting movie stars. We're not getting pop stars. So it's all connected. And I do think having cultural icons and touchstones is sort of an important thing that brings us all together, that keeps us watching these shows that like we could just like look at our phones and whatnot. But it's like, oh, like I kind of like Noah Centineo. I'm going to look up a couple times and be like, oh, wow, I feel good about that. Whereas we're not really getting that with a lot of these shows. So I do think we're transitioning. And the sad thing and the scary thing to me is that what's swooping in is, you know, our TikTok stars and our Instagram influencers. And that's sort of taking the purview that used to belong to people who, I'll say it, had talent. You could say it's ambient, but to make me want to watch it, you got to have some talent. Not that TikTok and Instagram influencers don't, but it's a different.
You can say they don't. You don't have to hold your punches.
I'm going to say they don't. I'm going to say that they don't. And
say it with your chest. Lead into it. It's great.
It's a new year. They don't have talent. I'm going to say
new year, new you. Let's go.
Yeah.
Kathryn, I got to say, when you think back to the early days of television and even the rise of cable, it was kind of mostly mid content, right? It was fine for it to be kind of mid. Are streamers suddenly realizing, you know what? Maybe we don't need to completely reinvent the wheel on this one and only serve people prestige television?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's certainly the case. I think a lot of what's also happening is just sheer bulk, right? Like for quite a long time, prestige eventually created its own form of midness, where it was like all of these shows were trying to mimic what they thought prestige television looked like without actually having any of the creative, innovative thought behind what it would actually make a good show that people wanted to watch. And so the empty aesthetics of like what prestige TV created its own special mid tier.
Like, do you want to name names? You're totally welcome to name names if you want to.
I mean, oh God, the one that really stood out to me it was the year before last, was the Essex Serpent. It was on Apple TV Plus. It starred Claire Danes. It's an adaptation of a book. No one remembers it at all.
The way Chris is like, did I have a brain blip completely?
Tom Hiddleston. Julia Roberts was in a show about the Watergate. Like,
I cannot name that show. I could not possibly name that show for you. Thank you, Chris. I appreciate it.
I knew that one, but the other one, I completely no idea what you're talking about.
Exactly. And so the discovery was not that prestige television, doesn't have worth anymore. The discovery was when people want to watch mid, they want to watch mid, right? Like those shows don't work because people put them on and they're like, I don't know, it's asking too much of me and yet it sucks. What's wrong here? And so the procedural was one of the most incredible inventions in like 20th century fiction for a reason. Like it works. It works for the way our brains work. It works for our lives. And yes, it creates this incredible stars. David Krumholtz was on a procedural for years called Numbers, where the E was a 3, and he's now in Oppenheimer, right? Like, this is like an important cultural institution. And I do think one of the fascinating things about streamers is that they don't have procedurals really yet. And that I'm always curious, like, will they figure out procedurals?
I'll tell you this. I watched the entirety of The Lincoln Lawyer on Netflix, both seasons. Yeah. And I was like, oh, this is what my brain is looking for. I want, Mickey's going to solve it by the end of the episode. And then we'll be like, oh, a new mystery box has been unlocked. Let's find out what happens tomorrow.
It's the suits
back
of
in the
it
car.
all.
It's the suits of it all.
It's suits. Suits was so big this summer because, we're looking for that on Netflix. They don't have a Suits yet.
They don't?
Yeah. They fed us all these large procedurals and large prestige shows. And then all we were looking for is like, can you just put my brain in one track and never make it escape that track? And you know what? I'm on board with that. Mel, I do have to note, these streamers are also suddenly starting to talk about bundling together. Be like, hey, maybe you want to pay one price and you get 2 streamers, 3 streamers all in one, which sounds a lot like television, Mel. That sounds exactly like the thing that we allegedly got away from. What is going on there?
Well, it's such an interesting thing coming from here in Canada, where we kind of already do that, where it's like, if I want max content, I go to Crave and There's some, like, Discovery Plus has HGTV and Food Network bundled under it, but also is where I go watch my Naked and Afraid reruns. And like, I can see that happening. Like Hulu, where do I watch a Hulu show in Canada? Usually on Disney Plus, but not always on Disney Plus. And I think that's kind of points towards where we're going with it. And these, with them raising these fees too, suddenly, you're subscribed to 5, 6, 7 different streamers. You might as well have cable. So I think that in order to do that, the streamers have to kind of find that perfect little line to get as much money out of us as possible while giving us the content that we'll watch. And it's such a little needle to thread for them. Yeah. But again, I think that bundling is going to be the future. And I think it's going to be a combination of bundling and new upstart streamers that are operating at a higher pay grade, frankly, or giving you more exclusive content that are specific just to them.
What I like about this is that we spent all this time being like, streamers will reinvent television. It will reinvent the way that you consume all this information. It will reinvent the way that you pay for all of this. And also, you will get these high quality shows from Kevin Spacey, who will be this politician who's real conniving and will spend a lot of money on the show. It'll be
what a time.
Right?
We were so young then. We didn't know anything.
So young and foolish back then. But then we kind of come around to this moment and go like, actually, television was a pretty good business model. We should try to recreate that, but in streaming. And it is both comforting in the sense of like, well, I know what this is. This is just TV. You've just taken it to the internet. Or it's also in the other end of it is like, you kind of go like, okay, but now give me the procedurals. Give me the stuff that I actually turn to television for. I like that this is where we're at. If folks are just tuning in, my name is Elamin Abdelmahmoud, and this is day one of Commotion of 2024. Kathryn VanArendonk is here, Chris Murphy's here, Mel Woods is here. And now we got to get to the good stuff. We're going to go around, and each of you is going to give me a recommendation, something that you're looking forward to from the year 2024. Kathryn, I'll start with you. What are you most looking forward to this year?
Oh my gosh, most looking forward to. I mean, there's a long list of things that I'm looking forward to in spite of my previous pessimism. I want to know. This is the thing about TV. Okay. TV taketh away, but it also giveth. I am enthusiastic, in spite of myself, about a new season of True Detective starring Jodie Foster. I think franchise has gone through some ups and downs, but the new season looks very, very creepy. It looks alarming and very cold and scary. And I think that show does best when it's like very scary. And that season bodes well. I have to note that there's 10 more episodes of Bluey coming out this year, very shortly.
Best television show for children on any platform right now. 100%.
Parents rejoice. Yes. That's not nothing. And then, there's a lot of stuff. I am cautiously enthusiastic about an FX show called Shogun that's coming out in February. That is an adaptation of a TV classic miniseries that is itself an adaptation of a book and has been sort of reworked and reimagined for 2024. And it's just one of those big sumptuous productions where you're like, hell yeah, they put a lot of money into it and I can see it. And it, I love a palace intrigue show also. So
Kathryn's like, show me the money on the screen. Show me the money. Show me that you spent this actual money.
That's right.
Mel, what about you?
3 things from me. Number 1, more Love is Blind is coming, and I will be seated. I think it's Valentine's Day premiere. I'm ready for straight mess, heterosexual nonsense. I want to absorb it all. In the prestige realm, I'm really, really intrigued by the Fallout show that is coming later this year. I think The Last of Us gave us a really interesting model for video game adaptations, and we've not seen video game adaptations be done successfully. And we get Ella Purnell from Yellow Jackets in there, and Jackie, R.I.P. from Yellow Jackets, and I love to see her thriving. Yeah. And the last thing I want to shout out actually is a smaller streamer that really had a huge 2023 that I think is going to continue to pop off in 2024, and that's Dropout on the comedy side, which does a lot of improv comedy. They really popped off last year for their D&D show that they did, Dungeons and Drag Queens, and are really, really kind of beloved by certain corners of the internet that I'm on. And I'm really excited to see what kind of innovations they do on a smaller scale. You talk about that really neat niche space and not trying to be something for everybody, but trying to do something really, really well for the people who want it.
Yeah.
I'm really curious to see what kind of a story Dropout becomes in 2024, because I think they're poised to really break beyond a certain corner of Tumblr nerd and into the mainstream. And I think it's going to be really interesting to watch.
I don't think I knew about the Fallout adaptation. I find that really exciting because like that's a video game that was really important to me when in my video game playing days. So I'm really looking forward to that. Chris, take us home, pal. What are you looking forward to?
Well, okay. Well, I'll start with lowbrow, and I think a new season of Vanderpump Rules is going to be great. It comes in a couple of weeks, and we're coming to
the whole chat is doing fist bumps. This is great. All right, let's go. Yes,
it's the biggest story of the year in reality TV. What do you do afterwards? Maybe it's Ariana's villain season. I would love to see it. So that's one thing. But on the highbrow sort of spectrum, I'm super excited, and I do admit I've seen the first 2 episodes, so I know it's good. For Feud Capote versus the Swans, which is on FX.
Yeah.
It stars Tom Hollander from The White Lotus, Naomi Watts, who's so fantastic. They're both fantastic, as Babe Paley. The one good thing about streaming, I will say, we've been so negative about it, but the good thing is that because there's so much TV, when a network can get it right and they know that we can do a micro niche thing for a micro niche audience and do it really well, and we don't have to appeal to all the masses because it's not going to play in Peoria at 7 p.m. We can give the girls and the gays exactly what they want, and that is what Feud Capote versus the Swans does. It's sumptuous, it's glamorous, it's high drama. It's all about Capote fighting with the sort of the swans of New York, these very rich, important women, society women, and how their relationship completely crumbles when he writes an expose about them in Esquire magazine. And it's really fantastic. It takes big swings. The acting is phenomenal, and it's like feels like it's made just for me and my friends, and I love that. So I can't recommend it enough.
That's beautiful. And that's a wonderful note to leave it on. Kathryn, Chris, Mel, thank you so much for your time. You guys are the best. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So much,
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
And to you, of course. Happy New Year. Kathryn VanArendonk is a TV critic at Vulture. Chris Murphy is a writer for Vanity Fair. He co-hosts a podcast called Still Watching. Both Chris and Kathryn are in New York. And Mel Woods is a senior editor at Extra Magazine. They live in Vancouver, British Columbia. And that is it for the podcast today. Hey, remember you can listen to any episode of the show anytime you like, wherever you get your podcasts. My name is Elamin Abdelmahmoud. Happy New Year to you. We will see you tomorrow.